Whew. Thank God it's good. Because, I mean, we just saw the trailer for Deadpool 3, or as we're apparently calling it, Deadpool and Wolverine. And it's good. It's not, the greatest trailer ever made. I don't, have any problems with it, but I'm sure there's people that weren't super psyched by it. But just in general, it seems like it's got a lot of people on board, which is good. I just want to talk about it a little bit. This is not going to be breaking down all the shots and looking in the background, trying to figure out which characters are in it and Easter eggs and stuff like that. I'll talk a little bit about one or two characters that we saw that are kind of important, but more or less, I just want to talk about the feeling of this, what this means. Because this is Deadpool 3 is the only Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that is going to come out this year, as far as we know. We have a couple of shows. You have the Agatha House Harkness show. I think that's expected to come out this year. The X-Men animated show, my boy Wolverine's in that too. That's expected to come out this year. Although, again, I think we're less sure about that. I think we're expecting that honestly sometime in April. Well, we'll see. But the only movie that will be released in theaters is Deadpool and Wolverine. And it needs to hit. Mostly, I would say, because of the narrative, right? I don't think necessarily Marvel is in such a terrible spot. I do think finally getting rid of Jonathan Majors is good, and I think I understand why they waited, and it seems like now more allegations have come out that are just as serious, maybe even more serious. So it's good that they can move on from that, move forward, cast a new Kang, whatever. I do think there was a big albatross hanging over the franchise where it was just this one thing we were supposed to be able to look forward to, we couldn't be excited about, but now maybe we can. But besides that, obviously, Marvel had some flops last year. Ant-Man Quantumania wasn't that good. Secret Invasion was quite bad. The Marvels, I think, was okay, but it did make very much money, and I think there's lots of circumstances that has to do with that. But besides that, I do think the year wasn't really that bad. I think a lot of the stuff last year was pretty good. Guardians 3, Loki Season 2, What If Season 2, which was great. I thought What If Season 2 was excellent. But the narrative, especially because of all the news stories that came out about the Marvel machine kind of breaking down, is that Marvel needs to reboot because things aren't working. And it does seem like there were a lot of problems on the inside. The CGI artists were being overworked. The TV shows were being made in a really strange way for making TV shows. But overall, it was this big meta narrative of Marvel's done, Marvel's cooked. I'm glad after I saw this trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine, I saw a lot of people commenting things like, finally, Marvel's back. I think we have to, maybe, as a fandom, whatever we're calling, whatever this Marvel thing is, just give them some time. I think it's fun to say I'm done with Marvel, I quit Marvel, but reality, you don't have to quit, and you're not subscribed to Marvel. This isn't this isn't going to church where you have to re-up every time and pray tomorrow. You just have to go to the movies when you go to the movies, and if they're not good, you don't see them. And if they're not good, they probably won't matter for the whole story because they're not going to want to reference that constantly in the movies that come past that. Anyway, that's not the point of this. The point of this is the Deadpool trailer looked good, and I was excited about it. First of all, the action looked good. It looks thoroughly R-rated, and it just generally looks very slick. That shot where he reloads the guns midair is great. Stuff like that is always cool. And the first scene of the first Deadpool movie is that counting the bullets scene, which is equally cool. I think overall, story-wise, this is somewhat what we were expecting. There were a lot of different leaks that all went in a lot of different directions about what this movie was going to be about. And they weren't even leaks in the sense that they told you what happens at the end of the movie. They were just leaks here's what the plot is, here's what the, where it takes place, here's some of the characters. And one of them definitely dealt with the TVA. A couple of them probably had TVA in it because it was so important, because it was clear that they were doing that. And Matthew McFadden was playing a character named Paradox, who's more or less the Mobius to Deadpool's Loki. And beyond that, it just really wasn't incredibly clear what this movie was about. And I don't think we have that big of a picture, but more or less what I'm getting is Deadpool is at home just being Deadpool. He's kind of happy, but maybe not super happy. And then the TVA gets mad at him for time travel stuff. He goes to time travel jail. And they're like, actually, if you want to work here, they Suicide Squad him, actually. That's what I'm realizing now. They're like, oh, if you want to be a real hero, here's what you got to do. Put on your suit and go save people. So they go do that. Deadpool has to go, I guess, recruit Wolverine or fight Wolverine or something like that. It seems like the bulk of this movie is going to take place in, I think, what we're calling the Void, or that, sandy dust planet thing where the smoke monster lives in Loki. And that is interesting because right now a couple of characters are there. Ravonna Renslayer ends Loki season 2 in the Void. Kid Loki and Alligator Loki are still in the Void as far as we know. So I'm always trying to figure out how to put the Young Avengers and stuff, Kid Loki, if he wants to steal a tempad from someone or something like that, sneak into the Marvel Universe. That could be arranged. It seems like that could happen here. And also talking about the setting, I would say it's interesting. It seems like they're going for like a Mad Max post-apocalypse thing. The Void was never really that. It was, I guess, you know what? It wasn't quite that as much as like everybody was building costumes out of stuff they found, right? The guy had a bicycle helmet for his Loki hat. But I wouldn't say it was what it seems like it is here, which is like this post-apocalyptic grungy thing. You got Pyro, played by Alan Stanford, who was in X2 and X-Men The Last Stand. He's back and he's wearing a different outfit. Like, we've never seen him in like an actual Pyro suit. And I didn't really know this. I'm not super up on what every Ultimate Marvel character looks like, but while the suit he's wearing has some similarities to the usual Pyro outfit, it seems like he's dressed more like the Ultimate Universe Pyro, which maybe is something we're going to do with some of these characters where we see your original X-Men in their Ultimate uniforms, right? Like Scott and the X-Men, if they show up, can be in the uniforms they wear in the Ultimate Universe. So it won't look exactly like the 90s Jim Lee X-Men, which maybe they'll want to save for when they reboot the X-Men in the MCU. But if they want to give them looks that are iconic X-Men costumes and probably won't be used in anything, but still do resemble the characters we know, this is a great transition way to do that. Like, the Ultimate X-Men have a very specific team aesthetic, like a specific costume that they all wear that we have not seen in the Fox X-Men movies yet. So I would not be surprised. I feel like we've heard like rumors that if Scott shows up, he's going to look like the cartoon. But if he doesn't, if he's wearing something closer to what Scott wears in the Ultimate Universe, that would make a lot of sense. I do like seeing him again. Like, seeing Pyro is cool. Pyro's always been a character that everybody's like, where's this guy? It's funny that they didn't make him Australian, which almost makes me think maybe he is the one from X2. Like, that universe's Pyro got plucked out of wherever he was and put here. Only because, like, I think if we were doing Pyro from another universe, you just have that actor do an Australian accent. And if I was that actor, over the last 20 years, I would have figured out an Australian accent. Like, it's not incredibly difficult. And, you know, it's what that character usually sounds like, so I don't see why not. We didn't see a whole lot of other characters. You gotta look at Wolverine from behind as Patch, although I've seen people point out it doesn't look a lot like Wolverine. Like, the hair does, but that build does not look like Hugh Jackman, so maybe that's somebody else. The really important one, comic character that a lot of people are recognizing, is Cassandra Nova. So Cassandra Nova is Professor X's, this one's tricky. She's Professor X's evil twin, who he strangled and killed in the womb. So she was never actually born, but she's kind of like a psychic parasite that was able to form herself later. This happened in the Grant Morrison X-Men run, and she is bad. Like, she's evil Professor X, basically. And I wouldn't say she's like the most dangerous X-Men villain. I mean, she's quite dangerous, and she did some things that are very bad. But just power level wise, like, I think, you know, Apocalypse could probably kill her if he wanted to. But she is, without a doubt, one of the most evil X-Men villains. Where certain villains like Magneto or even Apocalypse doesn't want to just kill people for fun. He's all about survival and evolution and taking mutant kind and making them stronger or whatever. Cassandra Nova just wants to kill people because she's evil. Like, it's very simple. I think she is a character that I expected to see in... that, you know what? I never expected to see her in the movies. Because she comes up in the comics, but because she's part of the Grant Morrison team, she's pretty new compared to the X-Men, who've been around since the 60s, and her existence is tied pretty specifically to Charles Xavier. Now, I have a feeling Charles Xavier will be in this. I don't know if he's going to be a main character, but like, it seems like Patrick Stewart is down. And it seems like James McAvoy would also be down. So I'm curious to see what they end up doing with that. But Cassandra Nova, I understand why they picked her for this. Again, I think Mojo would be better. Although, I mean, I don't think Mojo would be better. I think there's a case to be made for someone like Mojo being the villain here because he's so, like, perfect for Deadpool. But I can see Cassandra being a character who, like, they decided we're probably not going to use her in the next couple of years, right? We want to do a Mr. Sinister story. We want to do a Magneto story. We want to do an Apocalypse story. We want to do Sentinel stuff, right? I bet they have a list of X-Men villains that they want to put in the movies in the future. In maybe an X-Men movie, an X-Factor movie, like a Storm Solo movie, whatever. And I imagine Cassandra Nova just didn't make that list, and here she is. It seems like, and I'm gonna just take a humongous wild guess at what's going on in this plot. It seems like maybe she's taken over the Void, like maybe she's mind controlling Alioth because she does have, you know, the same kind of telepathy and telekinesis that you would expect from a character like Professor X. Not that Professor X has telekinesis, but she has all that stuff. So she could maybe take over Alioth and use it to rule the Void. And maybe she's collecting all these heroes and villains that exist in the Void that have been pruned, especially because it seems like the Fox movies specifically are getting pruned. and she's turning them into some army that she's going to use to take over the TVA or something. That is not coming from anywhere, no, not reading anything. That's just looking at the trailer, knowing how Cassandra Nova usually works, and then thinking about like, well, if we have guys like Pyro in this, what would you want them to do? And then why would the TVA send Deadpool down there and have him get Wolverine? But that just, I don't know, that works for me. I'm probably way off. Although, I don't know, when I've done these before, I've been okay. Doctor Strange 2, I was pretty good with. I was like, oh yeah, America Chavez is the MacGuffin. I was pretty happy with that before when we saw the trailer. But other times I'm like so far off, and you go back and you watch the trailer and you're like, of course that's what's happening in that scene. Why did I think this was something else? It's clever how they put that together. There's two things I'm excited by. One, they didn't show us that much Wolverine, which I actually think is great. Like, the amount of restraint that Marvel's had with trailers is something they do very well, that DC does very poorly frequently. And a lot of it's not like their fault, but like DC, Fox, X-Men, Sony specifically shows way too much in the trailers. Like, I don't think there's a Sony movie that has not, I might be wrong about this, and Into the Spider-Verse obviously doesn't count, but the Spunk specifically, that's a fun tongue twister. Try that a bunch of times. They always show the last scene in the movie in the trailer. Frequently the last shot of the movie's in the trailer, and you can like see it and go, oh yeah, this is how it's gonna end. I do think, I mean, saying it right here, Kraven, I think that scene where that guy turns into the Rhino and says, you know why they call me the Rhino? I bet that's the last shot of the movie. And he turns into the Rhino and you see Kraven like grin or something, and then boom, credits. That's just a guess, but that's how these tend to go. But Marvel's good. They have a lot of restraint. So I like that we didn't see Wolverine. I also like that it wasn't a Marvel cameo palooza. Saw a couple of shots of the Avengers on that TV. He saluted Captain America, like I'm assuming he's inspired by Jiminy Cricket from the bad Pinocchio movie from 2 years ago, saluting at the end of that. Now you've all seen it, I'm sorry. But I would say that one of the things I'm most excited about, and I think we kind of knew this based on filming locations, is it takes place in a forest. Seems like there's a lot of forest stuff. Man, if I could pick one joke that I'm like, I want that in the Deadpool movie that I've said before that I think would be fun, it's some sort of thing where he's like, oh, we're in that forest. It's really cheap to film in. Or if they're like, oh, is this that one forest from New York, Massachusetts, and San Francisco, and Canada? Something like that. Maybe like someone like Wolverine and him have gone from one forest to another forest, because it does seem like this takes place in multiple forests. And he's like, why do we keep going to forests? And Deadpool's like, listen, man, that suit ain't cheap. I don't know. Either way, I'm glad we're keeping the forest tradition alive. But yeah, I mean, I had a feeling this would be big and this would resonate with people. And I'm glad it has. I do think it's great that there will be a full trailer coming up in, you know, the next couple months. It will have the Wolverine reveal in it, and people will lose their minds. I'll tell you this, I was late to the Super Bowl party I was going to, so I did not see this on TV. However, I heard that they put a little bit of it up and then said, like, watch the full trailer online. That's dumb. Just put the trailer up, because it's cool to see it with people, and I'll go, oh my god, look at that. I remember when they did the thing in the Civil War trailer where Bucky shoots at Tony and Tony catches the gun in the Iron Man suit. Like, I remember people were like, whoa, that was a moment that people at the Super Bowl party I was at were like, that's cool. And we all kind of saw that it was cool together. I do think that communally is interesting and is important. So I would have liked it if they did a little bit more of that. But otherwise, there's not really much I can complain about. I think overall, this looked really good. I loved the X-Men. I've always loved the X-Men. They've always been my favorite comic books characters. Like, Magneto is my favorite comic book character. If you want to know my favorite X-Men characters, it's like, I mean, I love Wolverine as a kid because he's short and he was exciting on the show. But like, the more I've read the comics, some of my favorites are. Kitty is probably the best X-Men. I really enjoy Nightcrawler, Storm. As far as like deeper cut characters go, Strong Guy is my favorite weird X-Men, but I love everybody on the X-Factor team. I also love, I don't want to say Megan's like an X-Men, but she is an X-Men adjacent character, but I really do like Excalibur. Rachel, I guess, would be like the Excalibur representative there. And like the villains, oh my god, Mr. Sinister, Magneto, Apocalypse, some of the best villains in all of comics. Here's what I recommend. If you want to learn something about Deadpool, if you just want to read a Deadpool comic, there's like a lot of actually pretty good Deadpool comics. The run by Brian Posehn. So it's Deadpool Volume 5. It came out in 2013, and the first like story collection is called Dead Presidents. You'll see it and you'll understand why. It's by Brian Posehn, Jerry Duggan, and Tony Moore. It's very fun. It's a good Deadpool comic. I mean, I really, you know what I love? If you want a nice short one, there's a comic called Deadpool Killustrated, where it was kind of after these Deadpool Kills the X Universe books, where he just goes and kills all the characters from literature. and I think it's very silly, and also as like a fan of literature, I enjoyed it. And then Cassandra Nova, who is going to be played by Emma Corrin, and I watched the Murder at the End of the World show that they're in, so good. I enjoyed that performance. I can see Emma Corrin playing that cackling, like, evil character who's just evil for pure evil's sake. So I think that could be fun. So if you want to read a good Cassandra Nova story, her origin is part of the Grant Morrison New X-Men run. So this was called E's for Extinction. It was broken up into a couple of like chapters, I guess is what you would call it. It's number 114 to 116 of New X-Men. It's by Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, and Tim Townsend. It's complicated. I would say it's not inaccessible. It's very good. It's one of the best X-Men comics that's existed, and you just have to go with it for a little bit, where the Xavier School is, who's on this team. They'll explain who these characters are, but this should sell you on Cassandra Nova and her whole deal. So overall, yeah, I'm excited we're back. It's the only Marvel thing of this year. I don't think, here's what I'll say too, but like, just looking at the trailer, if there are enough really fun, creative action scenes like that bit where he loads up the gun in midair, this could be great. And like, even if this story isn't the greatest story any Marvel movie has ever had, if the action is good and the jokes are pretty funny, I think this will succeed. So I think this will be exactly what Marvel needs. I'm happy it looks good. Other trailers, the Planet of the Apes trailer looks cool, super weird, and I'm down for that. Wicked looks weird. I don't know, never a humongous fan of that musical. Oh, Twisters looks, I don't know. I mean, you know what? Maybe Twisters would be cool. Tornadoes are scary. How many tornadoes have to happen in a row for the movie to be interesting? Like 4? And then like, that's a lot of tornadoes, but I don't know how many tornadoes happen. And I know they're chasing them, but still, it's like, do we have 4 tornadoes a year? Maybe. Either way, thank you so much for watching this. Deadpool 3 looks cool. Can't wait to see it. That's all I got. Stay safe. I'll see you guys next time.